heaven's sake. Order. I now call the Standing Committee on Public Accounts to order. My name is Kelly Regan. I'm the MLA for Bedford Basin. A reminder to everyone to place your phones on silent. And I'm going to ask committee members to introduce themselves, beginning with Ms. Coombs, who is participating virtually today. Ms. Coombs.
Good morning, folks. Kendra Coombs, the MLA for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Pier. Welcome to Public Accounts.
Good morning. Also, to my left, Mr. Young.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Nolan Young. I'd be the MLA for Shelburne.
Mr. Taggart.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome. Tom Taggart, MLA for Colchester North.
Mr. McDonald.
Good morning, everyone. Johnny McDonald, MLA for Hants East.
Ms. Sheehy-Richard.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Melissa Sheehy-Richard, MLA for Hants West.
Ms. LeBlanc.
Good morning, everyone. Susan LeBlanc, MLA for Dartmouth North.
Mr. Tilley.
Good morning, everybody. Fred Tilley, MLA, Northside Westmount.
Mr. Smith.
Good morning, folks. My name is Kent Smith. I'm the MLA for the Eastern Shore.
And I will note that officials from the Auditor General's Office, Legislative Council Office, Hansard, and Legislative Committee's Office are in attendance with us this morning as well. On today's agenda, we have officials with us, a cast of thousands, from the Nova Scotia Community College, the Department of Advanced Education, the Department of Labour, Skills and Immigration, and Department of Seniors and Long-Term Care with respect to the Nova Scotia Community College Annual Report, Skilled Labour Shortage, and Continuing Care Assistance Recruitment Initiatives and Programs. So I'm going to ask the witnesses to introduce themselves, and I'm going to start to my left with ADM Tracey Barbrick.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Tracey Barbrick, the Associate Deputy Minister at Department of Seniors and Long-Term Care. I'm here for Deputy LaFleche, who has an appointment this morning, and he'll be along here as soon as he can be.
Deputy Czapalay.
Good morning, everyone. Ava Czapalay. I'm the Deputy Minister for Labour, Skills and Immigration.
Deputy MacLellan.
Hi, I'm Nancy MacLellan. I'm the Deputy Minister of Advanced Education.
Mr. Bureau.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Dom Bureau, President of Nova Scotia Community College.
And Ms. Churchill.
Hi, Karen Churchill. I am the Chair of the Nova Scotia Community College Board of Governors.
We also have a number of officials from the various departments, and I'm going to, because they may be called upon to answer a question, I am going to introduce them. But perhaps I'll just introduce them, and we won't have them stand up because you're not near a mic. So we do have Janet Lynn Huntington, who is the Senior Executive Director from Seniors and Long-Term Care. And I don't know everyone's face, so I know some of them, but I was trying to go in order across there. So Lindsay Wadden, who I do know, who is the Executive Director of Strategy, Policy and Partnerships for the Department of Advanced Education. Jennifer L'Esperance, who is here from, who is the Senior Executive Director with Immigration and Population Growth. Sarah Melanson, who is the Project Executive of Long-Term Care. Anna Burke, Vice President of College Services and Strategy from NSCC, and Margaret Champion, who is the Dean of the School of Human and Health and Human Services at Nova Scotia Community College. So, as I said, cast of thousands. So, I will ask witnesses to make opening remarks. I'm going to begin with President Bureau, then Deputy MacLellan, then Deputy Czapalay, and then ADM Barbrick. Mr. Bureau.
Good morning again, and thank you, Madam Chair, for welcoming myself and my NSCC colleagues here today. As I sit here, I'm very honored to be here to have a moment to talk about the Nova Scotia Community College. I'm also very honored to be here with a number of our key government partners. I travel this country from coast to coast to coast, and I can authentically say that it's a unique environment in Nova Scotia where we work so collaboratively with a number of government partners, all towards a common goal. Also looking forward to responding to questions today that were drawn from our annual report. As you would know, we We table an annual report every year as per our act, and highlight a number of successes and operational accomplishments in that report. I'm sure you've all seen our latest report. In it, we shared our consolidated financial statements, many updates on our construction projects that we have a number on the go right now. Certainly very important, a snapshot of our students' success through a number of graduate profiles. For us, it's a way to show in a tangible manner the results of our work towards the mission of the Nova Scotia Community College, which is to build the economy and quality of life of this province through both education and innovation. For us, it's a small glimpse. It's one of many opportunities for us to report on the impact that we're having here in Nova Scotia and beyond. As many of you would know, the Nova Scotia Community College is comprised of 14 campuses, 13 physical campus, an e-campus, and a small number of learning centers throughout the entire province. We're proud with the statistics that about 96% of the Nova Scotia population live within a half an hour's drive of an access point to our college. Our work, our training, our education is industry-driven. Everything that we do is with the mindset of making sure that our workforce of tomorrow is equipped to take advantage and participate in the economy of tomorrow. Now, as a pan-provincial post-secondary institution, we can provide these opportunities to our students who come both directly from high school, but many of our students, as you can well imagine right now, are older and more mature. The average age of the college student now is between 26 and 28, and we've seen a great increase in the number of individuals who want to be retrained, uptrained, and reskilled, again, to take advantage of the emerging economy. Whether it's a campus or a student studying in any corner of the province, one of the most proud aspects of the Nova Scotia Community College is our accessibility agenda. We want to make sure that we are available for an individual who wishes to access a transformational experience of getting the skills that they need to change their lives. And as you can see in our community report, we take the opportunity to create a narrative for Nova Scotians to see themselves in that report and see an opportunity for them to change their lives. We're also very, very proud of the particular sectors that we're working on, and we're pleased to be here today to talk about the emerging need in the healthcare sector and our response, working very closely with our government partners as well as our industry partners to respond to that emerging need. So, Madam Chair, I look very much forward to this morning answering the questions and discussing what I think is to be one of the most important organizations in this province right now, the Nova Scotia Community College. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy MacLellan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm pleased to be here with my deputy colleagues and our colleagues from the Nova Scotia Community College to talk about skilled labor, recruitment initiatives and programs, and specifically related to continuing care assistance. I'm Nancy MacLellan. I've been introduced, and I am the Deputy Minister of Advanced Education. Joining me is Lindsay Wadden, Executive Director of Strategy, Policy and Partnerships. My career as a public servant began 25 years ago. It's shocking. Some of my previous deputy roles do include the Department of Seniors and the Department of Municipal Affairs and Housing. This gives me a unique perspective on the times we are in now, a time when we're looking to train those special individuals who take care of older Nova Scotians, a time where there's unprecedented demand for healthcare workers, a time where there's a need for more housing across the country. And on a daily basis, I see how the team at Advanced Education is rising to that challenge and answering the call of these times. The department's mission is to facilitate a proactive and inclusive post-secondary system so people can learn, grow, and thrive. The progressive education model for continuing care assistance is a great example of our collective work in action. We are well underway of reaching our shared goals. In fact, as the Deputy for the Department of Seniors and Long-Term Care will probably mention, we've recently met a great milestone. Over 1,000 students have now enrolled in a CCA program, and their tuition, books, and fees are paid through the bursary program. Through the progressive education model, 570 students have enrolled in the program since November of 2021. And this model is currently being offered at CBBC Career College, Eastern College, Island Career Academy, and the Nova Scotia Community College. I do want to take an opportunity to acknowledge the NSCC team for being so responsive and flexible in response to government priorities. They're a valued partner, They play an important role in Nova Scotia's economic growth and prosperity. And while it has always been the case, NSCC's recent work right now, when Nova Scotia is facing tremendous challenges and opportunities, has been invaluable. I want to speak just a moment on the important contribution made by private career colleges as well. Approximately half of CCAs in the province graduate from a private career college. They've been offering this work and learn training for almost a year and a half. The work and learn model allows students to study 3 days a week and work 2 days a week in paid positions in a continuing care environment throughout much of their training. Eastern College recently began offering this model to CCA students in Spring Hill and Stellarton. These are among 24 approved sites around the province and operated by career colleges, private career colleges. This localized training is important to help us attract and retain people to study and work in their home communities. It also helps us attract workers that reflect the population that they serve. For example, this September, Université Saint-Anne will begin to offer a Francophone work and learn program. Nova Scotia is attracting more French speakers, so this additional offering helps plan for a growing Francophone and Acadian population. We're looking at diversification in the needs of our population for equity groups in other areas of healthcare as well. The department recently announced a 30-person nurse practitioner cohort for Mi'kmaq learners, and in collaboration with other departments, we launched a Bachelor of Social Work cohort for 25 Black and African Nova Scotian learners. We're seeing strong interest in these offerings, and we're really proud of this work. These are other ways the department is answering the call of our times, a call to collaborate, to innovate, and act. I want to close by thanking all post-secondary students who have answered the call to work in some of our most high-demand sectors. Thank you for continuing to tell us what's important to you. Nova Scotia needs you, and we're glad you chose to study in Nova Scotia. We certainly hope you'll stay. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Czapalay.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me to be here today, along with the Department of Advanced Education, the Department of Seniors and Long-Term Care, the Nova Scotia Community College, and joining me is Jennifer Lesperance, the Senior Executive Director of Immigration and Population Growth in Labour Skills and Immigration. We all play an important role in growing and fostering Nova Scotia's workforce. This is key to building on the growth we're seeing across the province and addressing skilled labour shortages that all jurisdictions across Canada are facing right now. Finding solutions is what we are laser focused on at Labour Skills and Immigration. With our population goal of 2 million by 2060, we must be nimble and flexible, and we must work together. Now more than ever, Nova Scotia is opening its doors and welcoming newcomers from around the world. Immigration, migration, attraction, and retention are key to achieving this goal. It is also key to building the infrastructure we need today and into the future. Governmental departments are working together on improving and building infrastructure. Nova Scotians are united in our effort to find solutions. We are collaborating with the private sector, industry leaders, universities and post-secondary schools, and of course, federal partners. We are identifying labor gaps, attracting the talent we need, building homes and schools, and improving transit. Other provinces and territories are facing similar challenges, and that means Nova Scotia is in fierce competition, a competition to attract talented and skilled workers. We need to be innovative in our approach. We have shown that we are a trailblazer in this way. Through the Economic Mobility Pathways pilot, we participated in a recruitment strategy that centered our efforts in Kenya. The province led a trip to a Kenyan refugee camp in partnership with IRCC, the UN High Commission for Refugees, Health Association of Nova Scotia, and MacLellan Group, as well as the Shapiro Foundation and Refuge Point. We interviewed over 100 candidates in 2 refugee camps, as well as candidates in urban refugee camps in Nairobi. The result is 65 more continuing care assistants will be working in Nova Scotia this year while making this province their new home. As mentioned, the MacLellan Group was part of the delegation. They made 50 job offers, and 28 healthcare workers were hired to work in Mahone Bay. And MacLellan Group went one step further. It was critical that they support Kenyan healthcare workers with the tools they need to be successful in Nova Scotia. MacLellan Group bought 3 homes in Mahone Bay for their new employees. They continue to find solutions so workers can thrive in their new home province. To address skilled labor shortages, we must make it easier for people to build their skills. We're working with partners such as the Nova Scotia Community College to allow easier access to upskilling. Equally, we know employers need support to recruit new talent, including youth. The Nova Scotia Apprenticeship Agency, with Nova Scotia Public Works and the Construction Association of Nova Scotia, have an agreement where contractors bidding on provincially funded construction projects must be engaged in the apprenticeship program. We also have solutions that support employers, including Apprenticeship Start. Employers may be eligible to receive up to $25,000 for a new apprentice. If they hire an apprentice from an equity-deserving group, they may be eligible to receive up to $30,000. Also, in response to industry need, government changed the ratio of journey persons to apprentices from 1:1 to 1:2 and added flexibility and supervision requirements to facilitate more opportunities for hiring and supervising apprentices in the skilled trades. These are just a few examples of investments, initiatives, and partnerships that are helping us attract, retain, and support the people we need in Nova Scotia. People that can help and build the houses and the infrastructure we need. More people make us stronger in every way. And when it comes to addressing our labor and infrastructure needs in Nova Scotia, people are part of our plan. So thank you very much for your time, and I'm happy to take your questions.
ADM Barbrick.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me here with you and my colleagues. I assure you this group of people works very closely together, so it's sort of like a old home week when we see each other. You were introduced to both of my colleagues, Janet Lynn Huntington and Sarah Melanson behind me. For years, the continuing care system, including home care and long-term care, have been underfunded. Over the past year and a half, government has made significant investments to address long-standing issues facing the system, among them workforce shortages. These investments that have been made are focused on supporting staff in the sector, training and hiring more staff, adding and improving long-term care rooms, and providing the support seniors need to live home longer by investing in home care and other supports. Staffing is what we're here to talk about today, but of course these things are all interconnected. Staffing is a critical piece of ensuring older Nova Scotians receive the right care and support when and where they need it. Our department is committed to building and stabilizing the continuing care workforce and making home care and long-term care a great place to work, with opportunities for career growth that carry people through a working lifetime. Government's workforce-related investments are designed to ensure we have the staff needed to provide care and support to seniors now and into the future through our short and long-term efforts. These efforts so far have included the free tuition and books for 2,000 CCA students, an innovative work and learn program where students can learn while gaining experience and earning money, a targeted investment in CCA wages to address a specific shortage in CCA positions, national and international recruitment, recognition of prior learning and skills, and opportunities for more training for our staff. Our efforts are paying off and we're seeing results. Through the temporary measures that we've put in place, the number of long-term care beds closed due to staffing has gone from hundreds to none. But we are not yet done. We won't stop until we've made continuing care in Nova Scotia a sector of choice amongst healthcare professionals. Earlier this month, we hit an exciting milestone when the 1,000th student signed up for a CCA program just a year after the free tuition program was announced. We're on track and halfway to meeting our goal of 2,000 CCA students over 2 years. Adding 2,000 people to this workforce will help significantly. Training is a big part of our efforts to grow the workforce. I want to recognize Don and his team at the NSCC for their continued partnership with us on this front. NSCC has been an excellent partner and offers CCA programs across the province. This includes the traditional program for hundreds of Nova Scotians, with cohorts starting in September and again in March. And it also includes our new and innovative program of training with programs in Sheet Harbour to offer a work and learn program offered by NSCC. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank our other partners in post-secondary private career colleges who also offer the CCA program. We are excited about the work ahead and remain committed to investing in and supporting the thousands of Nova Scotians who make up the continuing care sector throughout the province. We look forward to taking your questions.
Okay, thank you very much. So we are a little further along in our hour than we normally are when we begin questioning. So I just want to remind my colleagues that the second round of questioning will be considerably shorter than usual. So the time now is 9:21, and we will begin with the Liberal Caucus. Mr. Tilley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And first of all, I'd like to thank you all for coming today and, presenting to us and taking our questions. It's very much appreciated. I know how busy all of you are. So thank you on behalf of the Liberal Caucus for doing that. Very interesting presentations. Learning, I have a little bit of history in NSEC, as most people know, but to hear from this side the good work that's happening both at the departments and through government initiatives and at the college is really amazing. So I do have a few questions. You found that funny, Mr. So I have a couple of questions. So I'm going to start on the CCA side, and this could be for anyone. So what is the capacity for CCAs across the province, both sort of the capacity in programs, both NSEC and private colleges?
So, was that?
It could be for the department. NSEC may or may not know.
So perhaps I'll go to the department first.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, sure.
All right. To Deputy ADM Barbrick.
Thanks. I'll start, and some of my colleagues likely have information to add. But currently, between the private career colleges and NSCC, we have a little over 1,000 seats in this year that are fully registered at present. So we continue to meet that 1,000 students per year for the next 2 years, and then we'll be evaluating the need as we go forward. Any additions?
Mr. Tilley?
Thank you very much. That's great. So we have 1,000 seats that we're filling, which is excellent. So what is the current gap? So from a CCA employment standpoint, what is our need, I guess, in the system?
ADM Barbrick.
Yeah, thanks for that question. So one of the pieces that came into effect based on legislation was back in the spring, we've established a mandatory CCA registry. Before that, there wasn't, there's not a college for CCAs like there are for some of the other health professions. So the need for CCAs in the system has been established based on surveys of employers, which is not an ideal way to assess the need. So the mandatory registry came in place in February, and now we will be positioned to understand exactly what that need is. So we work closely with the Health Association of Nova Scotia that works with all the employers in the continuing care sector to establish that need. The 4.1 hours of care that was announced last spring with our budget has added another 550 employees to the system. So the need continues to be there. So there's about 10,000 people that work in long-term care, and the CCA gap was about 1,400 about a year and a half ago. We now have all of the beds in the province open because the employers have been able to fill the positions that they need in order to open all their beds. So moving in the right direction, the mandatory registry will certainly help us with longer-term workforce planning. That's been a significant gap.
Mr. Tilley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Great. That's good news for sure. We know that the CCA occupation is a demanding occupation on employees and on their physical beings. Are we noticing? So we're training about 1,000 a year, on leaving for retirements or leaving for injury. Can you give me an idea of where we stand with exits, I guess, from the CCA profession?
ADM Barbrick.
Thanks for the question. So because we are working with 150 individual employers, the province as a whole, outside of those surveys, does not have specific numbers for each facility and their gap. However, it's absolutely a fact that retention has been an issue, and estimates at one point were that about 50% of our licensed or registered CCAs were leaving the workforce. We are seeing that start to stabilize with a number of interventions. The 4.1 hours of care means that the workers on the floor have more colleagues to help with things that they need to do to provide care. And our safety record is improving. So we've made a number of investments in safety, including lift programs, various safety equipment, training on site. And what we're seeing, and WCB is reporting, is a significant reduction in both lost time injuries and length of time that the person is out of the workforce. So all of those things certainly will help us retain the important workforce that we need.
Mr. Tilley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that. I've got lots of friends in that industry, and I know the injuries that they incur on a daily basis. So it's good to hear. I just want to move a little bit to the international recruitment side. So the fact that we have this need for not only CCAs but healthcare professionals, we have a need for skilled trades professionals in Nova Scotia. So just reading through some documentation, so when we look at prospective immigrants, and I'm glad to hear about the trip to Kenya and bringing in some healthcare workers, but what I noticed in the latest, in the 2022 reporting, showed that the largest group of immigration is around food service supervisors with 574, followed by cooks with 415. And then if we look down and look at carpenters, we're at 34, and drywallers 11. And so we know that there's a housing crisis in Nova Scotia. We know that there's a major need to bring in more skilled trades, but also I would echo that on the healthcare and CCA side. So can you give us an idea, other than this one trip, what are the plans, I guess it's for Deputy Czapalay, the plans going forward to attract more immigrant workers to both healthcare and skilled trades?
Deputy Czapalay.
Czapalay.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the question. And certainly, as I mentioned, we're focused on growing our population to 2 million by 2060. This approximately requires about 25,000 people to stay in Nova Scotia every year, either by coming in through immigration or in migration, or just simply staying in Nova Scotia to work and not leaving. So last year, we grew our population by about 35,000. So I know you're from Sydney, and you'll know that number. It's roughly the size of Sydney, right? And so we have to think about everything that's in play to grow our population. So you've referenced immigration, and so I'll focus my response on immigration, but just to make sure you're aware that as important as attracting people here through immigration is to create welcoming and safe workplaces so that people choose to stay here and not leave Nova Scotia. In terms, so we had a record year last year in terms of landings. We just received the Stats Canada report, and we had over 12,000 people land in Nova Scotia in 2022. And that was a record year following a record year. So our numbers for immigration continue to increase. We are very strategic in our immigration focus in terms of healthcare and construction workers. But of course, if employers are asking us to help them with an immigration stream and an immigration process to bring more workers in, for example, you referenced the restaurant and hospitality sector, we'll work with them as well to come up with solutions. We don't see it as an either or. It's simply let's have Nova Scotia have a robust economy, all elements growing and supporting one another. Specific to the Kenya trip, that was a unique experiment that we tried with the federal government, approaching workers, skilled workers in refugee camps who had skills that we needed. and people who needed to start a new life. So we went with an employer, McLeod Group, to Kenya to find healthcare professionals who wanted to use their skills and to come here and work. And I just want to mention that the fact that we've identified 65 people interviewed.
Deputy Czapalay, I'm just going to interrupt you now because we do occasionally have blasts. There's blasting next door. We just heard a horn. We may have a blast go off, so I just want to warn people so they don't fall out of their chairs because it can be actually quite significant. So sorry for the interruption, but I just didn't want to have anyone have, heart palpitations. Yes. I don't think you need to put your head between your knees or anything like that. Anyway, back to Deputy Czapalay.
Try and rally my thoughts here. Really, what I would say, I wanted to assure this table that our efforts to attract the 65 CCAs through the refugee camp doesn't end with simply going there with McLeod Group and with other partners and attracting them to come here. I know that efforts have been made to ensure that housing is available, and also the employer has been holding meetings with the local community to ensure that people in the community know how to welcome newcomers, especially newcomers who have been in a refugee camp sometimes for quite some time. So it's an all-in-community effort to retain people here.
Mr. Tilley, you have 9 minutes.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much for that. And it's wonderful because it's actually, I think, more important on the welcoming side than it is on the attraction side. So I'm glad to hear that. The question I have, I guess, is on the international side and with regards to skills. So how do we vet the skills of the individuals, and then how do we upskill them if need be when we get them here in Nova Scotia?
Deputy Czapalay.
Thanks for that great question, and your background, I think, is showing. So in terms of identifying the right people, we put together our recruitment missions in partnership with other departments, so Department of Health and Wellness, Seniors and Long-Term Care, and others, Office of Healthcare Professional Recruitment. And we usually take employers with us, so Nova Scotia Health, for instance, or the Health Association of Nova Scotia, or it could be the Construction Association of Nova Scotia, or in this case, in the Kenya example, McLeod Group. So sometimes employers will ask an organization to represent them on site, and sometimes they'll go themselves. So it's a bit of both. So then we participate in immigration fairs internationally, where people who are seeking to leave another country and start a new life will go to these fairs, and they'll go with their resumes and be ready to describe their skills, and we'll be there ready to help them, along with employers who can look at their resume, talk about their skills, and get that in-depth knowledge about what they have. But also we'll have our immigration team there to help them understand what their pathways to immigration will be in Nova Scotia. So it's a multi-pronged effort, but it pays off, as you can see, with our population continuing to grow in leaps and bounds.
Mr. Tilley?
Thank you for that. I have 1,000 questions, but probably 7 minutes left. So I was really intrigued by the concept of supporting staff. So retention is a big item, keeping people in jobs, and the recent CCA increase was an example of that. There was one group that was left out of that, and I hear from these folks the PCW classification. According to them, there are a couple of courses or modules short. So just hoping that there's something that can be done to help PCWs in the field as well. But my question is around supporting for retention and attraction. And the program that has been put in place, I think it's called MOST, around skilled trades and the income tax piece. Has there been any thought to a similar program for healthcare workers in order to attract and retain possibly healthcare workers from other provinces?
Deputy Czapalay?
So MOST is more opportunities for skilled trades, and And that provides a tax incentive for workers, skilled trades workers under the age of 30. On their first $50,000, they get a tax break. The program is managed through the Department of Finance, and no other programs that I'm aware of have been announced to date. But we'll see how effective most is after everyone files their income tax this year. We know from talking to our navigators that people are asking about it. And we have a marketing campaign right now focused on Ontario and Alberta that is promoting most, and we're getting quite a few inquiries about it. So we're optimistic that the most program is having an impact, and it might be that differentiating factor in the competitive environment that I mentioned in my remarks.
Mr. Tilley, you have slightly less than 5 minutes.
Perfect. Okay, great. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm going to move on to just some questions to our NSAC folks. With regard to the skilled trade piece and with regards to the shortages that we're seeing in that area and also in the healthcare area, and I know from experience the hard work that goes into the programming, is there anything further that government can do to help grow enrollment? So is there capacity to grow enrollment in some of these programs? And if so, what do you believe that's a good idea, or how could we move that forward?
President Bureau?
Again, another great question. So I think the quick answer is yes. Increasing enrollment, I think, is always a good idea in terms of meeting the market demand for labor right now. What we're finding is the traditional model of education where students start in September and they graduate in June. That's an agrarian-based model that was created 100 years ago when workers were needed in the summer to harvest the fields. And that model is a model that's no longer relevant given the modern economy. So we're working hard to have more of a continuous intake and more starts during the year. And our government partners are very open to that, recognizing that we could have a January start, we could have an off-cycle start. Also, we're looking at more 12-month-of-the-year programming. So summers, you will drive by an NSCC campus and see the buildings being used in the summer. So it's a different model in terms of utilizing our educational assets. Another thing that we think we need to collaboratively work on is that for a young person looking at a career, our research tells us that the determinant is still predominantly at the dinner table. The influence of parents on a young person's career choice is still very, very high. So as a community, as a province, we need to continue to change the narrative of what an excellent career could look like in this province. Unfortunately, in the skilled trades, a number of years ago, we changed our focus from being proud of the craft of being a tradesperson to perhaps focusing more on IT, if you will. And I think we need to get back to recognizing that a skilled trade, is an honorable way to make a living. And if we have parents believing in that, that will shape the future of their children. So for us, we need to collectively not only deal with the incoming students, but the influencers in their life going forward. Yeah.
Mr. Tilley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, President Bureau. And I think that's a perfect segue to this comment. I'm sure I'm almost out of time. But
minute and a half.
A minute and a half. So yeah. So we won't have much time for a question here. But with regards to those influencing type discussions, and I know it's. NSCC has been around since 1996 as it sits today, but still it's the best kept secret in the province. So when you talk to people in the community and you talk to those influencing parents, there has to be ways in order for us to get into those dining rooms and those kitchens. And I think, I know one of the things that we're talking about today is the annual report of NSCC, and I think that's one of the ways that we get in, because Nova Scotians, and in my experience, and they relate more to storytelling and they relate more to visuals. So if they can see themselves in an occupation, so I think that's important to continue ensuring, and I think we all as government officials and as citizens can help to have those conversations. We're all involved in things outside of our occupations, and ensuring people understand those opportunities and the future that is available in those skilled trades in Nova Scotia. And coming from Northside Westmount right now, I can tell you, with a new hospital being built in Sydney Mines, and a new hospital addition in Sydney, a new campus on the waterfront in Sydney.
Order.
There's a lot of people working. Thank you.
Order. So the time for the Liberal questioning has elapsed. We'll now move on to the NDP questioning. Ms. LeBlanc.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thanks for everyone being here. I'm very happy to know that parents still have influence over their children. As I have an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, it's really heartening, actually, but I promise I won't just steer them in some. Although when they were born, I joked that they weren't allowed to go to art camp ever, but they could only go to doctor camp. But that's changed. That's changed. Anyhow, you may see them at the NSCC before too long. So I just wanted to say, firstly, it's great to hear about the 1,000 person milestone in the CCA program. But it begs the question, why is that successful? And I would dare say free tuition has a lot to do with it, that people can go into a job and know that they're not going to be saddled with a bunch of debt when they start to work. So my first question is for anyone, or I guess anyone. Are we looking in Nova Scotia at more programs where the tuition is made free for the skills in the trades that we need workers in?
Well,
President Bureau.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, thank you for the question. I think free tuition obviously has a big part to play in that. There is considerable public debate around the world around the success and the impact of free tuition in post-secondary.
Madam Chair.
Ms. LeBlanc.
Thank you. I just want to clarify that I'm not talking about universal free tuition. I'm talking about targeted programs. Are we thinking of targeting certain programs with that? So continue.
President Bureau.
Exactly. So targeted programming with free tuition cannot be the only lever that we use. There has to be other levers, including things like other supports, daycare, and the work conditions. We've been working very closely with the numerous private home care, long-term care providers, and having them recognize that the work environment also has to change. So the work environment in which these workers are going into. For example, recent conversations with Jason Shannon, he recognizes in working with unions that the work conditions, and he's making great strides, and Janet Hazelton will say this publicly, that the work conditions have been dramatically improved, which creates a more attractive work environment for. So free tuition is part of it, but if we look at the multiplicity of levers, there are much more than just free tuition. I will think, though, that if there are other shortages in the future, yes, of course, I think free tuition would be a tool that we could use. Yep.
Ms. LeBlanc.
I think Ms. MacLellan would like to say something.
Deputy MacLellan.
Thank you. If I may add, we have actually implemented programming for paramedics. We've implemented the program around African Nova Scotian social work cohort, and there is very much active discussion around how we can create better incentives for folks to enter the workforce, enter the training that will be matched with the needs of the labor market.
Deputy MacLellan. Sorry, Ms. LeBlanc.
Thank you. So our caucus has heard some issues with the CCA program, the Work to Learn program, especially coming from some of the smaller nursing homes. In the program, people have to put in 280 hours, and the nursing homes pay the wages, but not all of the smaller homes can afford it. And we've heard from about at least one facility that's been rejected for funding to cover 20 students in the program. So it seems to me that the program makes sense because there seems, I mean, one would think that there'd be a higher retention rate with this kind of program because folks are already working and so that they know what they're getting into, as it were, because they're working as they learn. So I'm wondering about that. I'm wondering about, I guess on top of that, my understanding is that the students that are in the Work to Learn program don't qualify for EI or for any student loans. So I'm wondering if the department is looking at that issue, I guess the seniors in long-term care and also advanced education, but the issue of the smaller nursing homes not being able to get the funding to cover the students, but also the students not being able to get other funding while they're doing that program. I guess Ms. Barbrick, Deputy Barbrick, can you speak to that?
Deputy Barbrick, ADM Barbrick.
Thanks for the question. There's a few things packed in there. So not knowing the specific circumstance that you're speaking of, but happy to follow up on that. Typically when we do a work and learn placement, the conditions for success have to be there. There have to be sufficient staff to provide a preceptor or oversight and training as part of the work. They have to have their beds open in the facility so that they actually are operating at sort of regular kind of operation circumstances. So if there was an arrangement that was declined, it's possible that they hadn't secured enough people to put a cohort through the program, because the most efficiency for the program is to have a full intake. So if the full intake can't be secured, it doesn't necessarily make sense to run a program for 3 or 4 people. So that may or may not, I'm not sure the circumstance, but happy to follow up on that. The other piece in terms of wages, so all of our facilities are funded at a standard level for their staffing. So if there was a specific facility, typically they have enough vacancies within the capacity of the organization to cover off the wages for 2 days a week of work. So if there's an individual facility that is unable to do that, we certainly can follow up if you want to let me know who those were.
Ms. LeBlanc?
Great, thank you. So yes, going back to the NSCC for a minute, our province is facing a shortage of skilled workers, we know this. It's difficult to tell from the annual documents how the college plans to meet the skilled labor shortages. So I'm wondering, is there a year-over-year strategic plan that shows the NSCC plans to fill which gaps and by when and why?
President Bureau?
Yes, the annual report is about one way that we report to the community. And depending on the need in a particular moment, that tool will be used for different reasons. What we found in our research over the past couple of years is that COVID-19 was really the third major jolt the world faced in the past 23 years, since the turn of the century. We had 9/11, we had the stock market crash of 2008, and in the past 3 years we've had COVID. And with COVID, we recognized that it was a health crisis, an economic crisis, a social crisis, but it was also a crisis of hope. We saw people losing enthusiasm. So we used that report for the past couple of years to share with Nova Scotians the art of the possible. We want them to see themselves in that report, to imagine what a different life could look like in a post-COVID environment. Our other tools that we use to report to the community include things like our strategic plan, which is very focused on things like the future of work, the digitization of the economy, the recognition that diversity, equity, and inclusion has to be considered as we build a new economy, climate change, and the list goes on. We also include an annual business plan that we file with the provincial government. We have a balanced scorecard. So yes, there are multiple tools depending on the need that we use to report to the community and clearly outline what our goals and objectives are.
Ms. LeBlanc?
Thanks. So speaking of that then, especially the equity-seeking groups, does the community college have benchmarks for women and underrepresented people in the trades? And I'm wondering if you have those benchmarks, which I assume you do, I'd love to hear about them, but could they be included in the year-to-year documents, that are, I totally accept and understand the need for hopeful documents, but it's also good to know, if you're meeting goals, if we have goals and we're meeting them. So wondering if they could be included in the upcoming annual documents.
President Bureau?
Madam Chair. Great idea, and yes, they can, absolutely. We try to capture the stories of diverse individuals. So if you look at the report this year, the 8 or 10 stories, we try very consciously to have all members of our community see themselves in the report. But that is, to your point, very qualitative. It's a storytelling. In terms of the quantitative measures, yes, we do have benchmarks. We do have a very robust equity agenda, and we're proud that in some areas we're exceeding it, in some areas we need to do some more work, and that would be an excellent part of our future report to the community to show that, exactly. Yeah. Our balanced scorecard also, our organizational health measures also speak to our work towards reaching our diversity targets.
Ms. LeBlanc.
Thanks. And then what, in your mind, so for the skilled trades that there needs to be capacity built so that we can get more people in the programs and more people out of the programs and into the workforce, what needs to be done to do that? Do you have, do you know off the top of your head which trades need more capacity and how you would build that capacity in the school?
President Bureau?
Yeah, every one of our programs has something called a PAC, a PAC, and that stands for a different name. It's a Programs Advisory Committee, and that Program Advisory Committee is a resource by people in industry who are giving us up-to-date, just-in-time feedback on employment trends, their needs for a future workforce. We then incorporate that feedback into future planning for our programs. It's an art and a science. Many people often say to us, you have a large wait list in Program A, why don't you just double the offering? Well, that's not that simple, because a large wait list has to be matched with a large demand on behalf of employers. So it's always that kind of healthy tension between what the market needs, the supply, and what students are demanding in terms of the demand. And I can assure you that's a constant analysis that we're doing on a regular basis. A larger piece that I just want to share with this committee, we think about the changing of demographics. 25 years ago, there were many more predominantly young men in Nova Scotia growing up in a farming community, in a fishing community, who were working on machinery. And they would tend to be the individuals that would pursue a career in the trades. Two things have changed. There are fewer young men doing that now, and the trades have dramatically changed. It's no longer a dirty profession where people come in and get their hands dirty. It's a profession that requires high skills in IT, technology, so we're attracting many more non-traditional entrants. Many more women are entering the trade right now, and we're very proud of that.
Ms. LeBlanc.
How much time?
8 minutes.
Okay, well, so for instance, we know that according to the apprenticeship agency, trades that are at risk of not meeting the market conditions right now, industrial mechanics, welders, power line technicians, iron workers, motor vehicle, body repair people, industrial electricians, like the whole list, right? So in terms of those trades, where is the college at in terms of what we're just talking about? So are you increasing the capacity for those trades? Like, is that happening right now, or are we a couple of years down, behind? And
President Bureau?
I am so sorry.
You're doing fine.
I'm just so excited about this stuff. I know. I just want to talk.
I do it myself in committee, so President Bureau.
So we, again, would be adjusting the program mix on a regular basis, working very closely with the apprenticeship agency, where they would tell us that there's a large demand for electricians, for automotive repair professionals. So yes, that constant ebb and flow in changing of program mix is happening right now as we talk. But again, I have to reiterate, planning cycles are here and now and 5 years down the road. And what we're recognizing is that we need to go back into the education system, not only to grade 12, but to grade 9, and how people realize that, again, there is a viable career, that you can live a very, very wonderful life in Nova Scotia pursuing that. And I'm very pleased that a number of years ago, unfortunately, public policy of the day was to remove shops, if you will, technical centers from our high schools. And I remember the days that we had very few high schools in this province that had that kind of learning opportunity. Now we have over 25 high schools in the province of Nova Scotia that have modern, advanced technology centers. So we're getting students, again, coming into NSCC who for the first time are not experiencing what it means to be in a trade. They're experiencing it in high school.
Ms. LeBlanc.
So we talked, I think Deputy Czapalay, mentioned I forget who it was actually, but anyway, we were talking about the 4.1 hours of care in long-term care, and how that has changed the work environment for the workers that are there now. I'm going to ask you about that. So we've heard about this for the last couple of weeks at Public Accounts or at Health Committee. I get them all mixed up. But union and long-term care advocates have pointed out the importance of enshrining the 4.1 hours of hands-on care into legislation in order to improve the workforce recruitment and retention. So will the government present changes to the Homes for Special Care Act this spring with those changes?
ADM Barbrick.
Thanks for the question. I think we talked about it last week. So in order to achieve 4.1 hours of care, we needed 550 more staff in a workforce that had been historically underfunded, and we were digging out of a ditch. So in order to put in legislation today or any other day, an employer or a service provider must be able to provide 4.1 hours of care, a national leader, today, when they can't actually hire, is unrealistic. So the first step to all of this was in the spring budget, we put $25 million in new money to support these service providers to get to 4.1 hours of care. 70% of them are now ready to go because they've got all their existing vacancies filled, they've got all their beds open, and 50% of them are actually there now. They're actually delivering 4.1 hours of care. So as we pump out people into the workforce, we improve the safety to keep them there, we've increased their wages, then we get to a point where it's realistic to say you are now legislated to have this many people on the floor. Otherwise, we're setting the system up to fail. So we only announced the 2,000 new workers of the free tuition a year ago. We announced the 4.1 hours of care and the 25 million, which will be 35 million when everybody's fully staffed in the spring. So all of those things are in place. We're moving towards ensuring that those service providers can be in compliance with legislation before we pop legislation out. So it's absolutely a piece of the mix, but it has to be realistic for them to deliver and achieve that.
Ms. LeBlanc, 3 minutes.
I hear you. I hear that. But I also think about, for instance, the environmental goals legislation. And legislation can be, what's the word?
Aspirational.
Yeah, aspirational, yeah. So why not put it in as an aspiration and give yourself, 2 years to accomplish 100% at that level? I feel like this is what the professionals are asking for, to have it baked in, so it can't change with a government change or anything like that. That it's much harder to change. I understand that is why, for instance, the unions, NSNU and QB, want that baked in. But I hear what you're saying. I just disagree. I feel like it could go in this spring, and we will call for it to go in this spring because it can be aspirational. It can be a future goal, like the Environmental Goals Act. We were glad, obviously, to see the government accept the minimum wage review committee to an accelerated $15 minimum wage, $15 an hour minimum wage. Of course, we also know that it falls much, very short of the living wages across the province. What is the department doing to work toward closing the gap between the minimum wage and living wages across the province?
Deputy Czapalay.
Thanks for the question. So, of course, we have a committee of volunteers comprised of both employers and employees who make up the minimum wage committee, and their focus is on balance, trying to appreciate the needs of businesses in Nova Scotia as well as the needs of employees. And the province received their report, I think, in December, and the minister took some time to hear from other organizations and groups, and then accepted the report. So the minimum wage is going to $15 an hour as of October 2024. And I've spoken to this group before about our Nova Scotia Works offices. We have a division within our department called Employment Nova Scotia, and within that we have the Nova Scotia Works program, and that provides supports to underemployed and unemployed people throughout Nova Scotia in over 50 communities. So literally in every community in Nova Scotia or nearby, you see a Nova Scotia Works office. And people can go to these offices, or we also have Skills Online as well. Increasingly, more and more people are accessing our programming online.
Order. Time for the NDP questioning has elapsed. We'll now move on to the PC Caucus. Mr. Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the witnesses. I'll direct my questions to NSCC. Big surprise, I guess, being that I formerly worked there. In one of the reports, it indicated that 94% of NSCC graduates are working in Nova Scotia, and as someone that graduated in the late 90s and spent many years out west, that's tremendous to have that many within the province. My question is, would you have an estimate on how many of that 94% would be working within their field? And the second part of that is, and what would the college be doing to support career opportunities following graduation?
Yeah.
President Bureau.
Thank you for the question. I don't have that first stat at my fingertip. We're going to see if my colleagues can draw it out for us. The second question, in terms of what do we do in terms of postgraduate support. Mr. Tilley mentioned earlier that 1996 was an important year in NSCC's history. In 1996, the province of the day moved NSCC from a vocational school model into a modern college with the passing of an act and the creation of a board, and we moved from being a government entity to a more independent entity. I use that time because we are fairly young in terms of the post-secondary sector in the province of Nova Scotia, where our university partners are hundreds of years old. So where am I going with this? It's only been the past 25 years that we began to really double down on our alumni population. And we now have in our alumni database, if you can believe it, over 100,000 Nova Scotians. That means one in 10 Nova Scotians in the province right now have been a graduate of the Nova Scotia Community College. So if you look in this room, probably 20 people, 25 people, there are probably 2 or 3 people in this room at least who are NSCC graduates, a stat that I'm very, very proud of. So now that we have that group captured, we now are able to provide supports to them in a more robust way. And that includes everything from insurance premium reductions to coming back and interacting with the college. Often alumni are sought for fundraising, and that's not our goal. Our goal is to reach out to our alumni, connect with them in a way to help them continue in their careers in a long-lasting way in Nova Scotia.
Mr. Young.
I think it was a couple of weeks ago, might have been in Human Resources, Deputy Czapalay mentioned that right at a high school, I can't remember the figure, but the number that were going into the trades, it was a significantly low number, but a lot of people were coming into NSCC as young adults instead, 25 to 28, I think I heard. So my question is, what efforts does NSCC make to help recruit young adults to the programs and to retain them once they're there?
Mr. Bureau?
I am so sorry.
I'm just slow, that's all.
No, you're not. So the attraction of young adults to the college is something that we've recognized requires a broad-based approach. As I mentioned earlier, we still know that young adults in their late teenage years still rely heavily on the dinner table conversations to have career counseling, if you will, in the home. But what we're also doing more of is going to community. We still recognize that there are certain communities in the province of Nova Scotia, people with disabilities, people living in poverty, our African Nova Scotian community, our First Nation community. There's still a gap between the connectivity with the college, and we want to close that gap, and you do it by actually getting into communities. So for example, at Wagmacook in Cape Breton, we've opened up a learning center on reserve, and that learning center on reserve has been an incredible if you will, way for us to become part of the community and increase the trust and the opportunities for those students. We have a large connection with high schools, with career centers, our connection across the board with our partners here today. This is not something that we can do by ourselves. We have to work collaboratively in partnership. And I'll finish off by saying that when we do programming now, a lot of our programming is shorter. It's micro-credentials, it's getting individuals trained and up-trained and retrained. So therefore, we have to work with our industry partners and our employers who recognize the benefit of one of their employees coming to study for a short period of time.
Mr. Young.
Okay. And thank you for that answer. And I think you may have touched on this question a little bit. I'm going to retweak it, but does NSCC take into account labor market needs when deciding what programs and how many seats to offer at its colleges? So if not, how are changes to program and seat offerings determined in general?
President Bureau?
100% in terms of input from industry. And that input from industry is here and now. What do you need tomorrow in terms of a workforce, but also a degree of predictability. If you look at trades, look at the future of alternative energy in the province of Nova Scotia, students being trained today will be working in jobs tomorrow that aren't even defined today or don't even exist. So the need to train an individual for the jobs that they're going to get tomorrow, but also to develop a lifelong learning mentality that they will have to update their skills in the future, and that's okay. You know, the famous stat everyone's hearing right now is the first people to live to 150 years old have already been born. They're amongst us already with the advances in healthcare. And I know that's a frightening stat, but the truth of the matter is, in the past 100 years, we've gained about 2 years of lifespan for every decade. So we're going to get to 150 years old. And I say that because we're going to have more and more people working in their 60s and their 70s, and that's going to require more and more people to be retrained later in life. And as an institution, we need to be ready for that.
Mr. Young.
Yeah, one more. And we've seen increased demand for seats at NSCC for the CCA programs following our government's commitment to cover tuition and raise CCA wages. What has NSCC seen in changes to demand since government announced the CCA wage hike? And what is the college doing to accommodate the increased interest we're seeing, particularly in rural areas?
President Bureau.
You'll have it by 11.
Can I ask Deputy MacLellan to hit me every time I do that? She just said, I'll have it by 11, which means I'm a slow learner.
That's usually how it works. That's usually how it works. President Bureau.
I'm so sorry. Can you repeat the question?
Mr. Young.
I'm looking to, there's an increased demand for seats at NSCC CCA programs, and I'm just wondering what the college is doing to accommodate the increased interest we're seeing, particularly in rural parts of the province.
I keep wanting to call you Deputy Bureau. President Bureau.
So obviously, in order to meet the increased demand, we're providing more program sections. So we need to increase the capacity to deliver on that. We're also recognizing the need, as I mentioned earlier, to be more flexible in our delivery. Something that we learned with COVID, and it's a famous line that we use all the time, that when COVID came on that Friday the 13th in March of 2020, the future arrived 10 years early in the world of education. So we had to move quickly in the world of hybrid learning, blended learning, technology-enabled learning. So what we're finding now is for students who have different ways of learning, we're able to offer something called universal designed learning, which is much more conducive to different learning styles. So I think that we've become a more flexible, a more responsive, and an organization that actually is able to meet learners where they are in a much better way than we ever have right now, and that's coming alive with the CCA program.
Mr. Young?
Thank you, President Bureau, for that, those answers. I'll pass it on to my colleague, MLA Taggart.
Sorry, was that MLA McDonald? Oh, sorry. Mr. Taggart.
Thank you, Chair. My first one's to President Bureau. You're going to have a new job before you leave. So what steps is NSCC taking around like performance indicators, strategic goals, targets, and baselines? What steps are being taken to ensure that NSCC is accountable for spending and performance?
President Bureau?
Yeah. There's an old wise saying in the world of education that the success of any post-secondary institution boils down to three key measures. The three key measures are enrollment, program quality, and budget. And if any one of those three begin to falter, they talk about a spiral down. So if your program quality goes down, your enrollment goes down. If enrollment goes down, your budget goes down. If your budget goes down, program quality goes down. So at the very core of what we do, we want to make sure that every single day we're focused on the quality of our programming to meet the needs of Nova Scotians to get the education they need. We do that in a way that's very fiscally responsible so that we do not in any way violate the trust that Nova Scotians have placed in us in the management of public funds. And in terms of enrollment, we do everything that we can to make sure that students are making the right choice for the right program, and once they do that, they are able to be successful. So from that very core model of three key measures, we then blossom that into an organizational performance measure document in which we measure a multitude of important key indicators of success. And one of the things that I'm most proud of is some of the independent economic studies that have been done over the years. Prior to COVID, we were engaging a third-party independent organization to measure economic impact on our graduates of the province of Nova Scotia, and the numbers were outstanding, and I wouldn't mind, I'll share those, Madam Chair, with the committee. We suspended that during COVID, but we'll get back to measuring that. And those numbers, I would hold them up against any publicly funded institution in the country in terms of return on investment for the shareholders of the Nova Scotia Community College, which quite frankly are the 1 million people who live in this province.
Mr. Taggart.
Thank you very much. I need to say, like, I'm a huge supporter of community college. My family has done very well as a result of it, okay? So, and I look forward to kind of, plays a huge role in the future of Nova Scotia. So I look forward to just kind of having a look at that document. But I got to change gears here a little bit. Earlier this morning, people talked about the NSCC being the best kept secret and stuff like that. I mean, certainly I've known about the NSCC, but I didn't really realize the role it played in healthcare and pre-university kind of studies. So I don't know who this goes to, but I wonder if somebody could discuss or explain to me a little bit about the 2+2 agreements you have with universities and what they're doing to promote this pathway and how this is benefiting post-secondary students. I don't know if that's
President Bureau?
I wouldn't mind taking a stab at that. And again, I'll begin with general and get to specific. The implicit contract that we're forming with our learners now is different than it was when we were attending post-secondary. The learner of today wants to be able to bundle to blend, to ladder, to combine educational experiences. And one of the biggest movements I've seen in the province in the past 25 years of my work in post-secondary has been the collaborative relationship in this province amongst the post-secondary sector. Folks like Deputy Minister MacLellan, Deputy Minister Czapalay recognize that when a student enters an educational pathway, there should never be any walls created. That should be a flow through that's very, very smooth. So with that in mind, we've worked very closely with our university partners to create pathways, a term that we use, which basically describes the flow back and forth. And in many ways, people consider that flow to go from NSCC for 2 years into a university. And that's been very, very successful. And when you talk to employers, they tell us the human capital product at the end is a very well-prepared human capital product for the economy of tomorrow. As we talk about the fourth industrial revolution in this province, and we're competing with the best in the world, we need a highly skilled, trained workforce. But what's happening now, Mr. Taggart, is we're seeing more and more students coming the other way. An individual with a 4-year degree wanting to top that off with a specialized advanced diploma or graduate certificate. So again, we're creating ways for those students to flow back and forth. And I'll end off by saying it can't end when you're 22 years old. Education policy for the longest time was between the ages of 4 and 22, or 4 and 24. Now it has to be between the ages of 4 and 84. So we need to create that pathway for a 24-year-old, but also a 54-year-old or a 64-year-old.
Mr. Taggart, you have just over 5 minutes.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not sure there's a lot of people know about this, community college in advance of university or higher education that way. Wish I had time to tell the story about my daughter, but I don't. I may be offline sometime. But and then I had no idea that last summer it was announced that community college would add 120 practical nursing seats. And how many of these seats have been put in place so far? Like the idea that, I just think it's a great idea.
President Bureau?
Yeah, those seats are fully subscribed, and we know that they'll get excellent jobs at the end of their studies. I do believe that the Nova Scotia Community College, and I know I'm biased, but we're successful only because, again, I'll say it again, the collaborative relationship that's created as a system of post-secondary in the province of Nova Scotia. It's the system that's successful, not just us. And the system has 3 legs to it, sir. It has government, it has the post-secondary institutions, and it has the apprenticeship agency. Those 3 have to work together, and we are.
Mr. Taggart.
Thank you again. So this one's to either you or advanced education. So can you, and follow up, I guess, can you provide an update on new and expanding programs in healthcare at community colleges and how that will help our shortage of healthcare professionals across the province?
President Bureau?
When we talk about healthcare, we often talk about the urgent need of LPNs and CCAs, which is our area of specialty. But it's much broader than that. You think about allied health programs, physiotherapy assistants, pharmacy technicians, occupational therapy assistants, medical lab technicians. So as we work with our provincial government right now to expand the scope of practice of all health professionals, we're realizing the graduates of NSCC will have a larger role to play in the solution going forward. So we are expanding not only in CCA and LPN, but we're seeing demand right across the board. So let's take medical lab technicians, for example. That's an area that we've worked very closely with government to expand the capacity and the graduation rate. And those individuals are walking across the stage after I give them their diploma. They walk down the stairs and into a great job in every corner of this province. So I would just remind us, when we're telling the story of the healthcare programs at NSCC, we have over 2,000 students studying over 40 different programs in the breadth of healthcare provision.
Okay, over to Mr. Smith now for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks again to everyone for being here. I have a bunch of questions related to the CCA program, and I have one most question sprinkled in. I'm probably not going to get to all of them in this round. Hopefully I'll have a chance to follow up in round 2. Before I get to my questions, though, I just wanted to follow up with ADM Barbrick, because I heard at Health Committee last week a number that relates to the number of beds that were closed in long-term care. And at Health Committee, I think you referenced there were 550 last year and then 7. So I think I heard you at your opening remarks today say there were 0. Can you offer some clarity on that for us, please?
ADM Barbrick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, thank you for the question, because it really is a testimonial as we talk about the things that we've done to alleviate the pressure on the workforce in both long-term care and home care. It is the wages, it is the 4.1, it is the safety investments, and it was about 14 months ago we had 500 beds closed, and pleased to report that at the end of last week we have 0 beds closed due to staffing. We had some flood damage to a facility down in Western Zone, but to staffing we're at 0, which means all of the service providers in the province have been able to fill their vacant positions so that they can open those beds. So that does not mean this is done. This is a workforce that has changed a lot over the years, but we are headed in the right direction, and thrilled to see that number last week.
Mr. Smith, 45 seconds.
Thank you. That is great news to hear, and I can only imagine the smile on Minister Adams's face when she gets to report that information. So with under 30 seconds to go, not really much point in going into a question, but I'll lead up to it to say I'm going to present a timeline in the next round of questioning, starting in the fall of 2021 and some of the announcements that we made then, and follow-up questions on those. Then in February of 2022, there's another piece of information that I want to ask a question about, and then I will wrap up with my most question from June of 2022 as well. So there we go. Set up for next round.
Okay. All right. We'll now move into our second round of questioning. We'll begin with the Liberal Caucus. You have 8 minutes. Mr. Tilley.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair, and again, thank you all for the great answers today. My question for this round is around the apprenticeship agency. So we understand the importance of the apprenticeship agency with regards to our workforce in Nova Scotia, ensuring people are moving through the system in timely manner and that sort of thing. But I noticed in 2022 on the website that there's a new interim CEO, so I'm assuming the CEO was retired or let go or what happened there. But I didn't see any news reports around the new interim CEO. So can we just talk a little bit about how that process played out and what the rationale is?
Deputy Czapalay.
Thank you for the question, and good timing, because the advertisement just went out for the CEO of the apprenticeship agency yesterday. So just getting the word out there that we're looking for a new permanent CEO. The CEO moved to our Skills and Learning branch, and that person is now the head of our Skills and Learning branch, which is, of course, our largest branch at Labour Skills and Immigration, and brings a great skill set to that job. The reason for the change was because we feel that apprenticeship and our Skills and Learning branch can be knit closer together. Both are very, very essential to the labour market challenges that Nova Scotia faces, and I feel that those two, the agency and the branch, working closely together will be a big solution for Nova Scotians in terms of joint programming and better delivery and joint understanding of where to put resources. So we do have someone acting as just an interim role. That doesn't require an announcement. The person is just acting for 6 months until the new CEO is hired.
Mr. Tilley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sure it doesn't require an announcement, but we do see a lot of news announcements on when we're changing, so we've noticed a lot of changes over the last number of years. Can we talk a little bit about the process? So what process would have been involved to appoint the new interim CEO?
Deputy Czapalay?
Thanks for the question. So as deputy, I have the authority to make changes to when I see the need to make changes. And the focus was on the skills and learning branch, which the senior executive director there had retired. And we ran a competition, and at the end of the competition, there was no clear individual that I could appoint to that role. And so we had someone acting, but there's some significant pieces in play in the skills and learning branch. Namely, that branch receives a lot of federal money. So we have in the neighborhood of around $140 million in federal money coming in, and those contracts needed a seasoned eye to keep an eye on those and on the negotiations. So it was a strategic decision, and one that our minister endorsed, and one that I'm, 3 months in, I'm comfortable with the decision, and it was the right one. At the same time, the apprenticeship agency has a lot of work that it's doing and a lot of work that it can do. And of course, I work closely with partners like the Nova Scotia Community College and Mr. Bureau, as well as the Apprenticeship Agency Board, which is an industry-driven board, to discuss what we are looking for as we go forward. We have a modernization agenda before us. It's in our minister's mandate letter. And as I proceed with that modernization agenda, we have some things that we want to do in partnership with the community college and in partnership with our industry partners and community partners to really make apprenticeship a third choice. When people think of university, they think of community college. We'd like also people to think of apprenticeship as a third option.
4 minutes. Mr. Tully?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So with the current interim CEO, was that a promotion from within, and do they have experience in the apprenticeship industry?
Ms. Czapalay, Deputy Czapalay?
Thanks for the question. The current acting CEO, interim CEO, is from the private sector. He was retired. I didn't want to appoint from within because I would assume some of the senior team might be interested in the permanent position, so that left that option open. And working closely with the board and with our partners, and of course myself with a sharp eye on things, and our former CEO didn't go very far. She's still within the department. Everything is well in hand.
3 minutes. Mr. Tilley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just further along those lines, can you give us a timeline? So I'm understanding that this time it was a national search for a new CEO. Can you give us a timeline on when we'll have this position in place?
Deputy Czapalay.
Well, the position was advertised starting yesterday nationally, as you mentioned, and my goal is to have someone in place in June.
Mr. Tilley.
Okay. Last question. So with the previous competition that you mentioned that wasn't successful, was that a national search as well, or was what took place there?
Deputy Czapalay.
That was for the Senior Executive Director of the Skills and Learning Branch, and that was a search that we worked with the Public Service Commission on.
Mr. Tilley.
So that one was unsuccessful, so then there was an appointment to that branch from the current, and so now we're doing a search for apprenticeship? Is that correct?
Deputy Czapalay.
That's correct.
Mr. Tilley, you have 2 minutes.
Perfect. Okay, so can you give us an idea with regards to the programming with apprenticeship and the future that we see with expanding the apprenticeship side of the business? Because as President Bureau mentioned, there's certainly the 3 legs of that stool, and apprenticeship plays a large role in that. And we've seen some programming come out of that area. So can you kind of describe what your marching orders are going to be for the new CEO when they arrive?
Deputy Czapalay.
Thanks for that. So first, I might just be clear on what apprenticeship is. I was anxious to mention it earlier when you were asking about free tuition. So apprenticeship is a way that a worker who has an employer who's a journey person can acquire skills and advance through those skills at various levels. And when they demonstrate the skills that they have, they can go to the Nova Scotia Community College or to another contracted agency to write a test, which is free, and take courses, which are free, and move through the skills. So a number of trades programs require apprenticeship in order to advance through the program. So our vision is to expand apprenticeship significantly. We see it as a solution for our skilled labor shortage. Right now, we have a marketing campaign that aims at attracting skilled trades workers to Nova Scotia who are work ready right this minute, and that's because of a harmonization program that we have with other provinces. So if you're a welder somewhere.
Order. Time for Liberal questioning has elapsed. We'll now move on to the NDP. And it will be Ms. Coombs.
Thank you. My question is to the department. The province collects millions of dollars in fees in a given year from people who are meant to be in long-term care, but who are remaining in hospital in an alternate level of care. And due to there being no bed availability in long-term care, these folks are being charged for long-term care services but are not receiving them. Can you explain the rationale behind the policy?
ADM Barbrick.
Yeah, thanks for that question. Once a person has been medically discharged from a hospital, but there is not a place for them to be placed in a nursing home, the accommodation policy that applies in the nursing home segment of the healthcare spectrum also applies in the hospital environment. So the accommodation policy applies, the person is assessed against their income, and they start to pay the accommodation rate that would be required in the nursing home. That is not, just to be clear, a seniors and long-term care policy. That's a Nova Scotia health policy within the hospital walls.
Ms. Coombs?
So to be clear on that, just to follow up, are they receiving the same care that they would receive in long-term care that they're receiving in this hospital alternate level of care? A yes or no, it's fine.
ADM Barbrick.
So they would be subject to the acute care model within the facility in the hospital.
Ms. Coombs?
Thank you. I'll switch it up. We recently heard from CUPE about the unintended consequences of the much-needed CCA raise on other staff. There are many long-term care workers who are also critical to the safe operations of homes who do not receive this wage and also are also CCAs. So we have cleaners, laundry workers, food service workers among them who are often doing multiple roles. So my question is, how's the department addressing this issue?
ADM Barbrick.
Thanks for the question. So the targeted investment that was made in CCAs in the province a little over a year ago was to respond to a significant deficit in the position. Nova Scotia's CCAs were underpaid on the national level, which was leading to really a crisis in CCA capacity, which meant some of those 500 beds were closed because they didn't have sufficient workers. So, it was in the space of the continuing care system. So that was a targeted investment made to solve a very near-term crisis. The remaining wage-related matters are really for the bargaining table. So Department of Finance and Treasury Board is responsible for bargaining with all of our organized labor associations across the province, and the rest of those issues would be addressed and resolved at the bargaining table, and we encourage anyone that's not actively at the bargaining table to get there so that those things can be addressed.
Ms. Coombs?
Okay, so I find this that answer unsatisfactory, and I mean no offense by it. It's just that we have seen time and time again, government is going out of the way of and going out of the collective bargaining process to deal with these issues. We've seen it with we just saw with the CCAs. That was a prime example of going outside the bargaining process to provide better wages. We've seen it with EC. We've seen the issue with the ECEs. And so to say that it's for the collective, it's for the bargaining table, absolutely, of course it is. But this government has gone continuously outside of that to provide raises to wages. And so wouldn't you agree that long-term care, cleaners, laundry workers, food services are essential to the running of those homes?
Adia Barbrick?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Of course, everybody working in the continuing care sector is critical. So again, we encourage all that have expired contracts to get to the bargaining table to resolve some of those issues.
Ms. Coombs?
As the department, I know budget is coming up, along with collective bargaining, is the department making any advocacy on those increase in wages?
ADM Barbrick?
Oh, thanks. I didn't notice the light came on. Yeah, thanks for the question. That really is a question for the Department of Finance and Treasury Board, where the mandate for bargaining is held.
Ms. Coombs?
I don't know if you maybe I'll rephrase it. I'm just asking, is the department making any advocacy? We've heard about departments who are spending a lot of time. They say we're talking to our departments, we're not working in silos. And so I'm just wondering, is the department saying these workers are essential, they're critical to the safe operations of these homes, they need a wage increase as well? This is what our suggestions are.
2 minutes, ADM Barbrick.
Thanks for the question. We really do encourage all bargaining units in the across the continuing care sector to address their labor needs at the bargaining table.
Ms. Coombs?
Thank you. I'll take that answer as a no. That advocacy is not happening. I have just one question regarding housing, and that is, it was mentioned in somebody's opening remarks that, or maybe it was an answer to a question, I can't remember now, that community organizations have purchased homes. My question is, one, why? Is this due to the housing crisis that we're in? And two, why is it on the community organizations to find the money to get these homes? I just want to expand on that remark.
1 minute, Deputy Czapalay.
I think it might have been my opening remarks where I mentioned that MacLellan Group had acquired 3 houses to house their continuing care assistants from Kenya. And so the point of the comment was that the skilled workers who are being recruited from refugee camps are coming here through our EEMP stream, and the employer is making extra efforts to ensure that they settle well. It was more a comment on retention and the importance of making sure that people settle well and are housed and cared for here, and that the community is also prepared to receive them. I think that was the comment you were referencing.
Thank you.
Order. Order. Time for NDP questioning has elapsed. We'll now move on to the PC Caucus and back to Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as I referenced, I'm going to start in the fall of 2021, and most of my questions in this round are going to be directed towards Ms. Barbrick, just because I'm focused on CCAs, and that seems to be your area of expertise. After hearing you at Health Committee last week and hearing you today, you know a lot about the topic. So in the fall of 2021, our government made incredible investments in CCAs, investments in recruitment and investments in recognizing past skills and experience. Obviously, the investment in the tuition was something that was huge. But I want to talk a little bit about the Work and Learn program. And I will say, Ms. Barbrick, the way to a politician's heart here at this table is to reference their hometown in your opening remarks. So you referenced Sheet Harbour, and so that I didn't have to bring it up, but using Sheet Harbour as the example, we know that there was a Work and Learn, very successful Work and Learn program that took place at the Eastern Shore Memorial Hospital. I'm curious to know more broadly on that program. How's the uptake been? What's the future of that program look like? Any other details that you can share? I know you did reference it a little bit in one of your earlier answers, but anything else you can share would be helpful.
ADM Barbrick.
Thank you. The Work and Learn program, that model has accessed a whole new level of worker. In some cases, it's people that already worked in the continuing care sector, maybe in housekeeping or in dietary, and with an on-site Work and Learn model where they don't have to travel someplace and incur the cost of traveling, that they can do the training on site, has accessed a whole new level of worker for whom CCA certification might not have been achievable. In addition to that, they work 2 days a week paid, which can help offset the costs of other things in school. So we definitely, right now, we have about half and half people in the traditional classroom setting CCA like we always had, many of whom are with Nova Scotia Community College, and a little more than half in the Work and Learn model. The other little shout out that I'd like to give is that NSCC has recently launched a part-time evening and weekend NSCC cohort of CCA traditional learning students, but making it accessible to those that may work Monday to Friday in a different type of job and they want to advance their earning potential by becoming a CCA in the evenings and weekends. So those kind of creative solutions are how we are going to access some new workers. The other thing, not part of your question, but I need to provide as an interest point, is the recognition of prior learning is the other pathway for somebody to become a registered CCA. So we included 700 free, typically going through the RPL process, cost the applicant some money, and it's now free. So we've got another 700 people that are going through an RPL certification process that augments and adds to that traditional CCA learning and the Work and Learn model. So lots of creative things to try to get at people who wouldn't otherwise be in the programs.
Mr. Smith, just less than 5 minutes.
That's great, and thank you. I know, just to circle back to the Sheet Harbour example, thank you. There was unexpectedly the Scotiabank in Sheet Harbour closed, and so from that there were several staff members who were going to become unemployed, and I know for a fact that several of those folks ended up in the Work and Learn CCA program. So it was a great option for those folks who otherwise may have had to leave the community. So that was in the fall of 2021. We're going to fast forward a little bit to February of 2022 when we launched the CCA registry. So I work in a land of logic, so it seemed pretty logical to get a starting point to know how many CCAs we have. I'm wondering if you can explain how we're using that data to better plan for the future now that we know exactly what we have as a starting point.
ADM Barbrick.
So we are just rounding a year that mandatory registry has been in place. We have just shy of 9,000 registered CCAs now, which is tremendous. But the value in that tool is the longitudinal understanding of what's happening with that workforce. So for an RN or a physician, the college and their associations allow line of sight to what's happening to those workers over time. We haven't had that insight into CCAs. So what we had for an understanding of what happens with somebody that graduates from a CCA program was through really NSCC's postgraduate surveys. And it was an estimate based on how many people that they're able to reach to determine how many people are staying in the sector. With the mandatory registry, we will have much more accurate understanding of whether these things are working. So free tuition, are we attracting the right students? Are they staying in the sector? With the bending of the safety concerns as things start to improve there, are we seeing a change in how many people stay in the sector? So that will give us much better understanding. The other piece that's very important to us is a lifetime career in the continuing care sector. So if somebody graduates or does a Work and Learn program, becomes certified as a CCA, what is the path maybe into an LPN certification, and there is already an LPN to RN pathway. So as we start to look at how do we keep people in the sector, how are these interventions working, and are they showing the dividends that we hope that they show? So it will be a game changer in understanding this workforce that has been a bit of a question mark.
Mr. Smith?
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that answer. I'm going to fast forward to June of 2022 when we made the official launch of the MOST program, the More Opportunities for Skilled Trades. So I'm not sure who the best person to respond to my question will be, but I will say that it was a monumental day for us, as it was something that we talked about during our campaign, and then we were able to announce it. And I ran into a friend of mine who works at the Irving shipyard, and I've never had, I took a picture with Miss Taylor Kaiser, who's a welder at the shipyard. I've never had a post go more viral than just a very benign photo of Miss Taylor Kaiser and I in front of a shipyard. So that got a lot of traction for me personally on the Eastern Shore, but I'm curious, how are we marketing this MOST program to make sure that those apprentices under the age of 30 know that they can take advantage of this tax benefit? Ms. Czapalay is nodding as if she'd like to answer.
Deputy Czapalay, you have 1 minute.
So we have phase 2 of a marketing campaign active right now that's targeting Ontario and Alberta. The focus of the campaign is to attract skilled trades workers and also healthcare workers. For the skilled trades workers, MOST is front and center. So, my colleague Jen Lesperon slipped me a note to say that we've had 120 inquiries about MOST since as of January. So it's resonating. So skilled trades workers, I mentioned in my earlier comment, it's a differentiator. There's a lot of competition. They can go anywhere. Their skills are mobile. So what makes the difference between choosing to come here and somewhere else? And so we're hoping that MOST, as well as some other things mentioned today, make a difference.
Mr. Smith, you have 15 seconds.
15 seconds.
Yeah.
Well, that gives me enough time to say thank you once again on behalf of the Government Caucus for being here today. We appreciate all the information and appreciate your knowledge. Thank you.
And the time for questioning has now elapsed. So I want to thank our committee for coming in today. You do have the opportunity to make brief closing remarks. If there's anything further that you would like to add, does anyone want to make closing remarks? Seeing no one jump to that, I'm actually just going to declare a 2.5-minute recess so we can clear the room and move on to committee business, okay? So committee is now in recess. Thank you, everyone. Order. Order. I now call the committee back into order. I would ask the committee members to resume their seats, please. And we're going to continue with our meeting.
You need a gavel.
I know. I need a gavel. I do need a gavel.
Why I'm telling saying that.
Okay, so I've called the meeting back to order. We do have correspondence here. We had some correspondence from Mark Peck, from information requested from the January 25th meeting. And also we had information from the Department of Municipal Affairs and Housing that came back. And so I would just bring that to the committee's attentions. Ms. LeBlanc.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I just wanted to register my disappointment in the response from Mr. Peck. You know, we were hoping that he would be at that meeting, and then so we asked those questions, which I appreciated very much. But I feel like the response where, especially in the places where, you know, he said, like, I cannot speak to what happened in the past. You have to check, you know, please refer to the Auditor General. I mean, the whole point of that, of the asking of the questions was so that he could give shed some light and some clarity on those situations. And so I just want to register my disappointment.
Yes, I noticed that too. He may not have had anything further to answer, and I suspect from what he wrote that he was not aware of them personally. So I think we're left in an uncomfortable place at this point. I'm not super happy with it either. We've done our best at this point to get to the bottom of the situation that the Auditor General raised for us, and at this point, I'm not sure what else we can do. Any further discussion about that? Okay. So, any other committee business? I will just let the committee members know that our next meeting is March 1st, 2023. We will be in camera. Our witness is the Office of the Auditor General. Re the 2023 report of the Auditor General, effectiveness of the Green Fund over the first 2 years. And if there is no further business, I now adjourn the meeting. Thank you.